A captured ISIS militant named Kareem tells CNN how he got his battlefield courage.
They gave us drugs, hallucinogenic pills that would make you go to battle not caring if you live or die.
When our CNN team interviewed Kareem last year, he was being held by Kurdish militants in northern Syria. It was impossible to know if he was telling the truth or if he was being coached by his captors. But tonight, a U.S. official tells CNN it's believed some jihadist fighters are using the drug Captagon, a dangerous and powerful amphetamine. How would it fuel them on the battlefield?
It keeps you awake. You can stay awake for days at a time. You don't have to sleep. And it gives you a sense of well-being and euphoria, and you think that you're invincible and that nothing can harm you.
Recently, the UN's drug czar said ISIS and the al-Qaeda-affiliated Nusra Front were believed to be smuggling the chemical precursors for Captagon. A U.S. law enforcement official tells CNN there's a robust black market for the drug in the Middle East. Analysts say the profits fund weapons purchases for jihadist groups.
Hezbollah, people affiliated with Hezbollah, have a long history in the production and sale of Captagon. At one point, there was a fight between Hezbollah-affiliated persons because some people were angry they weren't getting a cut of some of this business.
Captagon was developed in the 60s and was first used to treat people with hyperactivity. It's since been banned in the U.S. and elsewhere. And while some question the drug's prevalence among fighters who preach Islamic purity, analysts say jihadists can find a justification.
Is it hypocritical? Is it a violation of cultural, religious principles?
Jihadist scholars would argue that this is not hypocritical, that first of all, it's not a drug that's being taken to get high.
Psychiatrist Robert Kiesling, who's treated thousands of addicts, says Captagon's so hallucinogenic it can make a user hear voices and see things that aren't there.
That can hurt you on the battlefield, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But I think they have made the decision that keeping these guys awake for 4 or 5 days at a time and giving them a sense of invincibility is worth whatever harm or side effects the drugs have.
Two teenage female terrorists used scissors to launch another terror attack inside Jerusalem. As Chris Mitchell reports, it is the latest in an ongoing wave of brutal attacks by Palestinians against innocent Israeli civilians.
The attack took place on a busy street near Jerusalem's large open-air market called Mahane Yehuda. The two women stabbed a 70-year-old Israeli Arab and began to chase another woman. Security guards shot and killed one of the attackers and wounded the second. One of the girls was 16, the other 14. The attack here on Jaffa Street in Jerusalem is just the latest in a series of attacks that's left 5 Israelis dead in the past few days. Over the weekend, a Palestinian man stabbed and killed a 20-year-old Israeli girl. Despite the attacks, Israelis say they're here to stay.
We're not afraid, let's put it this way. We know that God is protecting us and we know we're in the right place. And even people that will try to kill us and try to take us out from our country, we're here to stay.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it's challenging to fight terrorism by individuals who are incited to murder by Palestinian social media.
They are brothers joined not only by blood, but it now appears by ISIS's violent ideology. Paris attack ringleader Abdelhamid Abaoud and his baby-faced brother Yunus, seen holding an assault rifle and wearing robes. Yunus was just 13 when his older brother brought him to Syria in 2014 to join ISIS, stunning his Moroccan family who had been trying to assimilate into Belgium's culture.
He called his father on the next day just to tell him, I took your son and I'm going to give him a good education, a Muslim education, a man education.
The family's lawyer telling Aaron Burnett the Abaouds are convinced Yunus was kidnapped.
The last news that the father had concerning Yunus was this horrible photograph taken in February 2014 where you could see the little Yunus with a big Kalashnikov, even bigger than he, because he was really looking like a child. It's the last image that this father has from his son. a life.
The father traveled to Syria to find his younger son, but was unsuccessful. Except for these photos gathered by Belgian journalist Guy van Vleerden, the family has received no word whether Eunice is still alive. Terror experts say teenagers like Eunice are extremely vulnerable to brainwashing and radicalization, especially by an older sibling.
Young people are the most malleable and the most susceptible to these sorts of narratives, particularly when the message is coming from someone that you look up to and admire.
Eunice's father says the teen never showed signs of religious extremism. But with his older brother, Abdelhamid, now dead after last week's gun battle with police in a Paris suburb, it's unclear whether the teen will try to make his way home or become even more committed to ISIS.
If an individual looks at what they see on those videos, they see children who are more empowered to defend Islam.
A type of radical Islam that children like Eunice are unlikely to comprehend.
These prostitutes are working the streets of Milwaukee, a growing hub for sex trafficking. 2/3 of the pimps arrested in a nationwide FBI sting 2 years ago were from Wisconsin.
We're gonna be out here looking for you.
We walked with Chandra Cooper through Milwaukee's West Side on a late-night crusade to rescue victims of forced prostitution.
Get you some food.
I just feel like it's my purpose and my mission to see them out of this and to help them as much as I can.
Nancy Yarborough works with Chandra. She used to walk these streets herself after becoming her boyfriend's paycheck when she was just 17.
How did you get from a point where you had a romantic interest in a guy to having sex with other people so he could get money?
It's the coercion part, because you want to please somebody enough and because you believe that this is actually going to please him.
Police in Milwaukee have more than 200 pimps on their radar, but few resources.
How come you only have 3 detectives assigned to sex trafficking?
Because I don't think people really realized how big it was until just recently. And again, so that's why I'm working as hard as I can to get more investigators.
This undercover detective says Milwaukee has earned the nickname Pimp School.
The fathers teach their sons, teach their nephews. A well-established pimp can make $500,000 on one girl in 1 year.
We just want to help the women.
Chandra Cooper is breaking that cycle. She set up Grateful Girls, an organization to rescue victims of sex trafficking.
My dad was a pimp. My dad was a violator. I live this, I breathe this, and I have to keep going.
But it's hard to change a culture one person at a time.
Come on down to 26th Street, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Marley Hall joins us now to talk about this story. Marley, as you were out there on the streets with the people in Milwaukee, what surprised you most about your experience there?
That the women and girls I saw on the street did not look like prostitutes. They were there in jeans and sneakers, and some of them so young, not what you would envision a prostitute to look like. And to know that these women were being victimized, I think for a lot of people is very shocking.
Yeah, to hear their stories is just absolutely incredible. To think that, like you pointed out, she was doing it for a boyfriend to make him money, and she said to get the love in return. It just seems like a vicious cycle that these women end up getting in. How did Milwaukee end up becoming kind of this hotbed for sex trafficking?
There is a lot of economic disparity in Milwaukee, and the unemployment rate is also very high. And some say that's the reason, because sex trafficking can provide a means of survival for pimps and for their victims. But law enforcement officials that I spoke to, they say that it is such a problem in Milwaukee because of the nature of pimp culture there. It is so embedded and sophisticated and organized. In fact, court documents show that convicted Milwaukee pimps describe pimp roundtables where they get together and share best practices and advice and tips on how to evade law enforcement. So it's very, very sophisticated.
Hard to break that cycle.
That's shocking, Marley. You know, we just put up a heat map of cases in the United States, and it was really interesting to see where those have been reported. Milwaukee police say they have few resources, but you see red spots in the Northeast, in Southern California, Seattle, and Florida. What are the resources and the response like nationwide to this issue?
Sadly, Milwaukee has more resources than most cities in the U.S. because it is such a big problem there. In fact, sex trafficking task forces are funded by the Department of Justice. And last year, Milwaukee received a grant of $600,000. That may seem like a lot, but when you compare it to the problem, it really isn't. To put it in perspective, Milwaukee police have identified more than 200 pimps. Those are pimps who have had some kind of contact with law enforcement. And every girl can generate about $500,000 a year for any given pimp. And most pimps have 4 to 6 women or girls in their so-called stable. So pimps far outnumber police, and they have a lot more resources too.